Welcome back to Legal Stories, where we dive into real court cases to understand the law. Today, we're looking at one of the most famous and historically significant cases in Zambia's legal history, the People vs. Edward Jack Shamwana and others. Even though this case is over 40 years old, it remains incredibly important. It gives us a lesson on how the law deals with high-level conspiracies, how courts treat evidence from people involved in the crime, and the limits of a lawyer's duty to their client. The story takes place between April and October 1980. Originally, 13 men were charged, but after some were acquitted early on, 8 men ultimately stood trial. 7 of them, including prominent figures and a lawyer named Edward Jack Shamwana, faced the most serious charge in the land, treason. 1 man faced a lesser charge of misprision or treason. Treason simply means committing acts trying to overthrow the lawful government of a country. According to the court records, there was a secret plan to overthrow the Zambian government. The group planned to force a presidential plane to divert to a pre-selected location. Once there, they planned to force the president at gunpoint to give up his power and hand it over to someone else. They would then announce the takeover on national radio and television. To pull this off, the group needed the military. They approached a senior military officer, the chief of air staff. They told him the plan and gave him some money to bribe Air Force pilots to divert the plane. But things didn't go as planned. The officer took the money, but he spent it on his own personal things instead of bribing anyone. Later, he was arrested along with the others, but he agreed to become what the law calls an accomplice witness. This means he admitted his involvement but agreed to testify for the state in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Meanwhile, the group needed an army. The court heard that some of the accused men traveled to the northwestern province to recruit people. They tricked these recruits, telling them they were being hired as ordinary farm laborers to work on a farm in Chilanga near Lusaka. But when these laborers arrived at the Chilanga farm, they were not handed farm tools or tractors. They were handed AK-47 assault rifles and ammunition. The court found that this was an illegal army. Some of the recruits realized what was happening and bravely deserted the farm, proving they were innocent victims of a trick. On October 16, 1980, Zambian security forces raided the farm in Chilanga, resulting in a shootout and the capture of several men and weapons. Exactly a week later, police raided a house in Roma Township, Lusaka. Inside, they found the lawyer, Mr. Shamwana. Also in the house was another accused man, the actual commander of the illegal army, who tried to escape by jumping over the backyard wall fence. When the police asked Mr. Shamwana who he was with, he lied. He said he was alone. Later, he tried to claim he was only at the house to visit a sick relative, and then finally claimed he was just acting as a lawyer for the man who ran away. The judge pointed out a powerful legal rule here. Lies told out of court can be used as corroboration, meaning they act as strong supporting evidence of a person's guilt. Because Mr. Shamwana deliberately lied about why he was there and who he was with, the court saw this as a clear sign that he knew he was caught in a guilty act, not an innocent lawyer-client meeting. There was one accused man, an officer named Mporokoso. He had a slightly different charge. He was the one charged with misprision of treason. Misprision of treason means you know that someone is planning treason, but you fail to report it to the authorities. Mporokoso admitted he knew about the plot, but his defense was duress. He told the court he was forced to keep quiet because the planners threatened to shoot him if he leaked the secret. The judge rejected this defense. The court explained that to use the defense of being threatened, the danger must be immediate, like someone holding a gun to your head right in that moment. Mporokoso had actually traveled out of the country twice to Europe and had plenty of chances to go to the police and seek protection. Because he kept quiet for months, his defense failed. In the end, based on the mountain of evidence, the weapons found, and the testimonies, the High Court found all 8 men guilty as charged. What can we learn from this historic High Court judgment? Number 1, silence can be a crime. If you become aware of a highly serious crime against the state, like treason, and you choose to keep quiet, you can be sent to prison for misprision. You have a legal duty to report it. 2. I was threatened is not an easy excuse. If you claim you only helped criminals because you were threatened, the threat must be immediate and unavoidable. If you have the chance to run away or report to the police and you don't, the law will not protect you. 3. Lies seal your fate. If you are questioned by the police and you deliberately lie to hide the truth, the court can use those very lies to corroborate corroborate the evidence against you. 4. A lawyer's duty has limits. A lawyer has a duty to defend their client, no matter how serious the crime. But as the judge noted, that duty does not extend to helping a client hide from the police or escape justice. The story did not end at the High Court. In 1985, the 8 men appealed their convictions to the Supreme Court of Zambia. They argued that the trial was unfair, that the police had acted improperly, and that the confessions were forced out of them. And in a remarkable legal twist, the Supreme Court actually agreed with some of their arguments. The Supreme Court fiercely condemned the police for creating an oppressive atmosphere at the Lilai interrogation camp and for breaking the judge's rules by failing to warn suspects of their rights to remain silent in a timely manner. Because of this police misconduct, the Supreme Court completely threw out several confessions and interrogation notes, ruling them legally inadmissible. Because those crucial confessions were thrown out, the case against 3 of the men collapsed. 2 of the men had their convictions quashed and walked out as free men. A 3rd man was also acquitted because the Supreme Court found the evidence only proved he wanted to overthrow a different government, not the Zambian one. But what about the lawyer, Edward Jack Shamwana, and the other 4 men? The Supreme Court ruled that even with the flawed confessions thrown out, the remaining proof against them, the seized AK-47s, the secret documents found at the farm, and the testimonies of the witnesses was so overwhelming that their guilt was undeniable. The Supreme Court dismissed their appeals, and the mandatory death sentences for Edward Jack Shamwana and his 4 co-conspirators were officially upheld. That's it for today's legal story. It's a fascinating look at how the law protects the nation, handles complex evidence, and holds even the police accountable for how they treat suspects. Don't forget to like, share, and follow for more legal stories.